In the cold silence of a forest morning, a brutal roar ripped through the air. Without warning, a giant shadow leaped from a tree, falling upon an elderly man. The jaguar's attack was swift and precise, its claws tearing into the old man's shoulder, sending him to the ground with the impact. Tragedy seemed inevitable, an act of unforgiving nature. But in the very next instant, something the jaguar didn't expect happened. A furious, white lightning bolt burst from the undergrowth. It wasn't one, but three Argentine Dogos who, like a force of nature, surrounded the wildcat and their wounded owner. With astonishing synchronicity, the oldest, Espeto, charged first, throwing himself against the jaguar in a calculated, brutal attack. What followed was a battle for life and death, a clash of raw power and instinct, where three loyal dogs refused to see their owner devoured. Before we continue, tell me, where in the world are you watching this story from? Leave the name of your country in the comments. And if you believe in four-legged heroes, subscribe to the Wind Echo Untold channel, where we share real stories of courage and loyalty that touch the heart and remind us of the unbreakable power of love. Long before the jaguar's roar, Mr. C's life was already a living legend, an elderly man who had chosen the solitude of the deep forest as his only home. He didn't just live in nature, he was a part of it. His house was a simple, rustic refuge, built with his own hands. But his true treasure was the family he found in those vast fields. Three powerful Argentine Dogos. They were more than just guard dogs. They were his companions, his confidants, and above all, his protectors. The three dogs, led by Espeto, the oldest and wisest, and including the valiant Bento, were a trio trained for loyalty and protection. Raised together, they formed a cohesive unit, a group of guardians whose strength came from their unity and mutual trust. That unbreakable bond was Mr. C's true security, a line of defense that couldn't be bought or forged, but which had grown naturally, based on years of love and dedication. On the morning of that attack, the forest's silence seemed heavy. The air was thick, and the three Dogos were behaving strangely. They weren't their usual calm selves. Their ears moved with every rustle of a leaf. Their bodies were tense, and their barks were short and agitated, directed at an unseen something. Mr. C, with the wisdom of a man of the land, didn't ignore those signs. He knew animals sense what humans cannot see. With a calm, yet worried look, he whispered to himself, "The forest is speaking." He had no idea how terrible the message they were trying to pass on was. In the vast lands where Mr. C lived, the jaguar was more than just an animal. It was a shadowy legend. Known to the locals as the Golden Shadow, it was a predator of unmatched power and intelligence. It hunted not for sport, but out of necessity, and its presence was felt even before it was seen. The region's experienced cowboys would tell tales of its ferocity and cunning, of how it could move without a sound and attack with the speed of lightning. This particular animal had an even more fearsome reputation. It was a massive male, with scars from previous battles, a predator that had grown bolder and less cautious over time. The jaguar had moved into the area about a year prior, and its presence had instilled fear in the community. Cattle would disappear mysteriously, and now and then a wounded horse would appear with claw marks. Experienced hunters tried to track it, but it seemed to vanish into the forest, always one step ahead. This jaguar didn't hunt for hunger. It hunted for the challenge, and with each victory, the legend of its ferocity grew. No one dared venture alone into the deeper parts of the forest. Everyone knew that once the jaguar chose its prey, there was no escape. On that morning, the predator had been observing Mr. C's routine from a distance with its golden, hypnotic eyes. It knew the old man was alone and that there were no traps or strong fences. The jaguar saw not a man, but an opportunity. Silently, it moved through the foliage, its muscular body sliding without a sound. It positioned itself in a tall tree, waiting patiently for the perfect moment, unaware that its prey was not unprotected, but instead guarded by 3 dogs who would do the unthinkable to defend their owner.
The forest exploded in a chaos of fur, teeth, and claws. The 3 Dogos, a coordinated unit of muscle and bone, launched themselves at the predator. They were a blinding flash of white against the Jaguar's spotted coat, their synchronized attack meant to overwhelm the beast. The air was filled with the sounds of their furious growls and the sickening thud of bodies colliding. They had been trained for this, but no training could have prepared them for the sheer ferocity of a wildcat fighting for its life. The dogs were brave, but the Jaguar was pure, raw power, a whirlwind of claws and teeth that moved with a speed that defied their combined strength. In a swift and brutal counterattack, the Jaguar, with the cunning of a seasoned predator, found an opening. It was not a head-on charge, but a cunning twist of its body, a blur of motion that allowed it to strike a vulnerable spot. A razor-sharp claw ripped across Bento's flank. The young dog let out a sharp cry of pain, a sound that cut through the chaos and instantly shattered the pack's perfect focus. The sight of their brother wounded, blood staining his white fur, was a shock that momentarily broke their unbreakable bond. The trio's coordinated assault broke down into a furious, disorganized rage. Their disciplined teamwork was replaced by a desperate, emotional fury. They lunged and bit without strategy, driven by a primal need for revenge. It was their first great mistake, a moment of grief and anger that exposed their vulnerability. The Jaguar, a master of reading its prey, sensed their weakness. It saw their rage as an opportunity, a chance to end the battle on its own terms. The predator, now with the advantage, pushed its attack relentlessly. It was bigger, faster, and now it knew its opponents were not invincible. The silence of the forest was filled with the sounds of a battle that was now heavily favored for the Jaguar. For a terrifying moment, it seemed that courage alone would not be enough. The first attempt had failed, and the fate of Mr. C and his loyal guardians hung by a single, fragile thread.
For a few desperate seconds, the fate of the battle was uncertain. The dog's fury was powerful, but it was not enough against the Jaguar's primal ferocity. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, something shifted. Their training, forged by years of loyalty and shared purpose, rose above their rage. They pulled back, reforming their defensive circle around Mr. C and the injured Bento. The pain of their brother's wound fueled cold, quiet determination. They would not lose. Not today. With a unified mind, they changed tactics. They stopped trying to overpower the larger animal and began to outsmart it. The 3 Argentine Dogos moved in a fluid, synchronized dance. They feinted and dodged, using their agility to confuse the Jaguar, forcing it to constantly shift its weight and expose its vulnerabilities. The wildcat, used to its prey running in panic, grew frustrated. Its powerful attacks began to miss their mark, and a new emotion, confusion, flashed in its golden eyes. Then Espeto made his move. The old dog, a true leader, saw a brief opening. He made a lightning-fast charge, not to overpower the Jaguar, but to draw its full attention. It was a feint, a calculated risk that put him directly in harm's way. The Jaguar lunged at him, but in that split second, the other 2 dogs seized the opportunity. With perfect timing, they moved to strike the predator's flank, delivering swift, painful bites that finally caused it to lose its footing. The moment had arrived. The Jaguar, now disoriented and wounded, found itself on the defensive. The hunters had become the hunted. The terror it had inflicted on the forest was now being reflected back at it by 3 brave dogs who had turned a desperate struggle for survival into a heroic victory. The fight was far from over, but the tide had turned, and the legend of their courage was already being written.
The forest trembled as the 3 Argentine Dogos cornered the exhausted Jaguar. They moved with a chilling precision, their bodies a blur of white muscle. The predator, no longer the fearsome hunter, was now a wounded animal, its fear a palpable presence in the air. With a final, explosive surge of power, the pack lunged in perfect unison. They used their combined force to overpower the wildcat, pinning it to the ground. The jaguar thrashed and snarled, but the relentless pressure of their bite and weight was too much. The beast finally yielded, its defeat a silent, brutal surrender. The chaos subsided, replaced by the heavy sound of panting and the silence of the defeated forest. The battle was over, but the dogs' mission was not. Despite their own wounds, their attention immediately turned from the conquered enemy to their fallen owner. They moved to Mr. C's side, their bodies low, their eyes filled with a concern that was more than instinct. It was love. They licked his hands, their presence a silent assurance that the danger was gone. Then, with an intelligence that went beyond their training, the three dogs began their most remarkable act. Knowing their owner was too wounded to walk alone, they positioned themselves on each side of him. Together, they formed a living corridor, a physical support system for his injured body. Mr. C leaned on their strong shoulders, walking with their help. The three faithful Dogos, bloodied but triumphant, had not only saved his life, but were now his sole support, guiding him on the long, painful journey back to his home. The long, painful walk back to the farm was a testament to the dogs' loyalty. With Mr. C leaning on his living corridor, they finally reached a dirt road, just as a truck engine's roar broke the silence. The vehicle belongs to his neighbor, Tono. The dogs, despite their exhaustion, barked with a newfound urgency. Tono stopped and climbed out, his casual demeanor turning to utter shock at the sight of the bloodied old man and his equally bloodied dogs standing side by side. He didn't see animals, he saw guardians. Tono rushed to help, his mind reeling as Mr. C, in a pained voice, told the unbelievable story. At the hospital, the doctors treated his wounds with expert care, but they couldn't hide their amazement. A jaguar attack was almost always a death sentence, yet Mr. C had survived with only a deep shoulder wound and several scratches. He was a medical miracle, and the dogs were the reason why. The story spread like wildfire, carried by awe and disbelief. The tale of the three Dogos who had faced a wild predator and lived became the most talked about event in the region. When Mr. C finally returned home, he was met not just by his three brave dogs, but also by a community eager to offer help. They brought him food and building materials, showing their respect and admiration. He was no longer just the old man of the forest. He was a living legend. The attack had been a moment of terror, but the dog's response had transformed it into a legacy of love, proving to everyone that their courage had changed not only one man's life, but the heart of an entire community.
Years passed, and the story of the three brave Dogos became a legend passed down through generations. The scars on their bodies were not just marks from a past battle, but a testament to their unwavering bravery. Their courage was not born from a need for glory, but from a deep, profound love for the man they protected. They proved that true heroes aren't always human, and that the most powerful force in the world is the unbreakable loyalty of a dog. Eventually, as life's seasons turned, the old, wise leader Espero passed away peacefully. He was laid to rest on a hill overlooking the fields he so fiercely guarded. His grave was simple, a final resting place for a true warrior, but his legacy was immense. The story of the three loyal guardians continued to be told, a testament to courage, love, and a bond that transcended the wild. What did you think of the courage of these dogs? Tell us your favorite part of their story in the comments. If you believe heroes can have four legs, subscribe to the Wind Echo Untold channel and share this story with someone who needs to be inspired by a real-life adventure.